My name is Laura, and this is our story. We really thought we had found our forever home. We had the keys, the truck was unpacked, and our future looked so perfect it felt like a movie. It was a beautiful 2-story house on a quiet street, the kind of place where you imagine the happy ending already written. We'd poured every cent of our savings into the down payment. As we stood in that empty living room, we could almost hear the echoes of future laughter filling the space. But we learned on the very first night that we weren't the only ones living there. This isn't a fictional story. This is what actually happened to us. The house was old, built in the early 1940s, and it had what real estate agents love to call character. For us, that meant charming, creaky hardwood floors, a brick fireplace we couldn't wait to decorate for Christmas, and huge, drafty windows that let in the most amazing afternoon light. My partner, Alex, was already debating paint colors for the kitchen, and I was mentally mapping out a vegetable garden in the backyard. Every single conversation we had was about the future we were going to build inside those walls. We were so happy it was almost foolish. We spent that first day tearing through boxes, fueled by cheap pizza and even cheaper champagne. We'd just stop, covered in dust and sweat, look at each other, and smile. This was it. This was the finish line after years of grinding. We were finally home. The house felt like it was welcoming us, promising a life of peace and stability. The first noises, the groans from the pipes, the wind whistling through a window frame, we just called them the house's settling sounds and laughed them off. We had no idea how wrong we were. That first night is when the dream started to fray. We were completely wiped out, physically and emotionally, from the move. We didn't even bother putting the bed frame together. We just tossed our mattress on the floor of the master bedroom, collapsed, and fell asleep instantly. Then, around 3 a.m., a sound woke me up. It was the distinct, rhythmic thump, thump, thump of footsteps downstairs. Right below us in the living room, I nudged Alex. "Did you hear that?" I whispered. He was barely awake. "Hear what?" he mumbled. "It's just the house settling. Go back to sleep." I tried so hard to believe him. Old houses make noise. That's what they do. I closed my eyes, but I was listening. The footsteps stopped. I told myself it was nothing, just my exhausted mind playing tricks on me. But then came a different sound, a soft, scraping noise, like someone dragging a chair across the hardwood floor. There was no one else in the house. Our furniture was still boxed up, and the only chairs we had were folded in a corner. My heart started hammering in my chest. I sat bolt upright, straining my ears, but the house was silent again. It was a deep, unnerving quiet that felt so much worse. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I just lay there, staring into the dark with the feeling, for the very first time, that we were not alone. In the days that followed, the activity was subtle, almost deniable. It was this slow burn of weird little things that you could explain away if you really wanted to. A couple of days later, we brought our dog, Buster, to the house. Buster is a golden retriever who is afraid of literally nothing, but his reaction was immediate. He would plant himself at the bottom of the basement stairs and just growl, a low, guttural sound we had never heard him make. He absolutely refused to go down there. He'd also sit in the living room and just bark at one specific empty corner, with the hair on his back standing straight up. Then, objects started moving. It began with my keys. I'd hang them on the hook by the door, only to find them later in the middle of the kitchen floor. Alex accused me of having moving brain and being forgetful. A few days later, a book I was reading, which I had left on my nightstand, turned up splayed open on the living room couch. We started to get into these small, tense arguments. I know I didn't leave it here, I'd insist. Well, I didn't touch it, he'd shoot back, the unspoken accusation just hanging there. Alex was the rational one, always searching for a logical reason. I was the one who was starting to feel this dread settle in my stomach. The feeling of being watched became a constant companion. I'd be cooking dinner and suddenly walk through a freezing cold spot, or get that unnerving prickle on the back of my neck, like someone was standing right behind me. The moment Alex's skepticism finally shattered came about 3 weeks in. I was out getting groceries, and he was home alone, painting the trim in the upstairs hallway. He had music on. The sun was streaming in. Everything felt totally normal. And then he heard it. A clear, female voice whispering his name from the top of the stairs. Alex. He said it sounded so close. It was like someone was standing right behind him. He whipped around, paintbrush in hand, but the hallway was empty. He killed the music and just stood there, listening. The house was dead silent. He tried to rationalize it. A sound from outside, a trick of the acoustics. But he knew what he'd heard people report hearing voices and whispers in these situations. But it's a whole different level of terror when it's your own name being called. He didn't tell me right away, but I saw the change in him. He stopped leaving me alone in the house. He began checking the locks repeatedly at night. Suddenly, those charming creaks of the old house didn't sound so charming anymore. Now, they sounded like footsteps. The buffer was gone. We were both scared, and whatever was in that house with us seemed to be getting bolder. The whispers became more frequent. All was too muffled to make out, like a conversation happening in the next room, just out of earshot. The first time I saw something, it was just a glimpse. I was walking out of our bedroom into the hall when a tall, dark shadow darted from the guest room doorway into the bathroom. It was a flicker in my peripheral vision, a tall, man-shaped void. I froze, my blood turning to ice. I yelled Alex's name, thinking maybe he'd somehow moved that fast, but he answered me from downstairs. After that, the visual stuff became more frequent. We'd both see it, a shadowy figure standing at the far end of a dark hallway, only to dissolve the second we turned on a light. It felt like it was testing us, seeing how much we could handle before we broke. The joy we had for our new home was gone, replaced by a constant low-grade terror. We stopped unpacking. What was the point? We couldn't make a home in a place that felt so fundamentally wrong. Sleep was a luxury we couldn't afford. We'd jolt awake at the tiniest sound, our nights spent in a shared state of anxiety that left us exhausted and on edge. The house was winning. The worst night, the one that finally broke us, happened about 2 months in. I woke up suddenly with that familiar dread washing over me. The room was freezing cold, even though it was a warm summer night. And that's when I saw him. Standing at the foot of our bed was the figure of a man. It wasn't a shadow this time. It was what looked like a full-bodied apparition, though his features were blurry, indistinct. He was just standing there, watching us sleep. I was completely paralyzed with fear. A scream was caught in my throat. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't even breathe. I tried to thrash around to wake Alex, but my body just wouldn't respond. Then, he moved. He glided from the foot of the bed to my side. I felt an immense, crushing weight on my chest, like a physical hand was pinning me to the mattress. It was a terrifying, violating pressure, and I felt a wave of pure malevolence wash over me. I finally managed a choked-out gasp. The sound woke Alex. He shot up, fumbled for the lamp, and flooded the room with light. Just like that, it was over. The pressure was gone. The figure had vanished. I burst into tears, shaking uncontrollably as I tried to explain what I had just seen and felt. Alex held me, but his eyes were scanning every dark corner of the room, his face pale with terror. He hadn't seen the figure, but he said he felt the atmosphere in the room shift. He knew I was telling the truth. We didn't stay in the house that night. We grabbed our wallets, our keys, and the dog, and drove to the nearest hotel. We checked in at 4 a.m., looking like two people who had seen a ghost, because we felt we had sitting in that sterile, anonymous hotel room. The conversation was finally honest. No more rationalizing, no more denial. We couldn't live there. That place wasn't our home. It was its home, and we were just unwelcome intruders. The next day, we started digging. We went to the local library and buried ourselves in old town records and newspaper archives on microfiche, desperate for some kind of explanation. What we pieced together from those records seemed to explain everything, and it chilled us to the bone. 50 years earlier, a man had lost his family home, our home, to the bank after a long, bitter financial struggle. A week before he was set to be evicted, he reportedly died by suicide in the master bedroom. We never spent another night in that house. We put it on the market right away. We didn't disclose the haunting. What could we even say? We weren't sure what the law even required for something like that, and we figured no one would believe our story anyway. We just wanted out. We sold it at a loss, but the financial hit felt like a small price to pay for our peace of mind. That experience changed us. It took our perfect dream and twisted it into a complete nightmare. We lost our savings and our sense of security, but we gained the certainty that there are things in this world that we can't see and don't understand. We never found out for sure who or what was in that house, only that it didn't want us there. Sometimes, I still wake up in the middle of the night with the phantom feeling of that pressure on my chest, and I still wonder, who lives there now? If you've ever experienced something you couldn't explain, we'd be honored if you shared your story with us. Please subscribe for more stories, and we'll see you in the next one.